and welcome down to episode number 63 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and the dude on the other screen and in your other ear, if you are listening to this, it's Cam Blake in Hobart, Tasmania. Hello, Cameron.
G'day, Brens.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm really well. I'm in a good mood. I'm jolly and festive and
finished work for the year.
Yeah, like you said, gee, you've done work on the run sheet. I'm like, I've got nothing to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Actually, I've been, I've been busy. I built a fence this week.
You built a fence?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, usually people tell me to build a bridge, but I built a fridge. That's right. I built a fence. No, next door,
just in a random paddock somewhere. You just went. And
just built some. No, next door, our fence is a bit dodgy next door, so the neighbour and I have been smashing panels together and doing all that kind of stuff. And
cool.
It's still standing and it's straight and it looks like a fence. Yeah,
you get some serious breezes in Hobart. Hopefully, it's still there.
Yeah, well, they got metal uprights, so it should be okay. But we're only about halfway done, so we're going to do a bit more later this week when the weather comes back to being okay.
Very good.
Yeah, so not busy at all.
Nice. Thanks to everyone for listening to episode 62 with our good friend Tom Putt, rating quite well that episode. So thank you for that.
Yeah, don't thank Tom though.
Why would we? And I got a bit of feedback around the traps that they found that quite an engaging episode. So thanks for tuning in.
Really?
And as usual, thanks to everyone for subscribing, liking, following, and all that sort of fun stuff as well.
How are we going with our subscriptions? 373, dude.
That's all right.
We've gone up. We're almost going to reach 400.
Better than a punch in the face.
Yeah.
I think.
With a wet fish.
It is.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, thank you everyone for subscribing. And last week's episode, as much as I hate to say it, was actually pretty good. And I also got similar feedback. And also I got some feedback on your interview skills, Brendan. People were quite impressed with the way you handled the ego. I mean, Tom, how you managed him. And it was a very enlightening episode, everyone said. So
right, good. I'm no Michael Parkinson, that's for sure.
No. Mel was a big fan of it.
Mel. Hi, Mel. I know you have a listener.
We need to give a shout out to someone else this episode.
Chelsea.
Yeah, she was here last night and we had a bit of a wrap up for 2022. And all I heard was, why don't you give me any more shout outs on the show?
Sorry, Chelsea.
To the point that she's going to kill me for this, but to the point that when her husband and her watched the show, the last couple of episodes they've watched, Isaac, her husband at the end, has said, what? No shout outs anymore. What's going on?
Whoa.
So, So g'day, Chelsea.
Hello, Chelsea.
We'll give Isaac a shout. Let's give everyone a shout out, eh?
It's shout out time. Cameron, you're looking very festive tonight. For those of you who can't see Cameron, please explain.
So I was given a set of pajamas. This is actually a pajama top. It's a Mickey Mouse Merry Christmas shirt.
I love it.
So would you believe, this is so embarrassing, but I'm putting it out there for the world, that Lisa went and bought matching pajamas for the entire family.
That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to the Christmas photo.
Yes, there apparently is going to be one coming.
Of course there is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's just your normal hat that you get around in?
Yeah. Autumn, my daughter, she's been wearing this for last week. So she said, wear this, Dad. So I said, I will.
Nice.
And you're in our good old
I have the Down South Photo Show hoodie on, available where all good hoodies can be purchased.
Yeah, on our website.
Yes, that's right, our website.
Maybe that's next year. Anyway.
Hey, I know someone who's got a lot of downtime right now.
It's funny you say that, because I'm actually working on something that I will announce soon, but I've been working on another thing and it has a website attached to it. So it wouldn't be too hard to get one going.
All right. Okay.
But we'll get onto that. But that's not now. That's another time.
We will. Let's start, as we do every week, with our backgrounds. Your background has gone very white Christmassy, I guess.
Yeah, that was the theme. I'm not going to read what's on the running sheet as my background.
Don't do that.
No.
Let's keep it PG.
Let's keep it PG. So this is, I thought, we're almost going to get white Christmases in Australia these days, but this is a shot from a little set of tarns in the Cradle Mountain National Park with some beautiful old pencil pines covered in snow. There's actually another one. There's like 3 of them in the reflection, which I like.
That is a very cool reflection.
Yeah, it was bitterly cold, but it was pretty cool. So I thought I'd go a bit, snow sceney and Christmassy.
I like it. Well, mine's a metaphor for a Christmas tree. It's a lighthouse.
You sure
It's
it's
like
not it's not what the running sheet says it is?
it's a beacon. No, we can't read what the running sheet says.
But it looks like what the running sheet says.
It kind of does a little bit. So this is
Yeah.
my. Oh, hang on, I better cover the camera. This is my go-to spot, Point Lonsdale at sunset, taken with the drone. And yes, I was in that photo, and I had to clone myself out.
Right.
I'm actually standing under the lighthouse, but I just didn't think it needed to be "Where's Wally" like old mates last week. So
Yeah, no.
I let myself out of it.
Did you drop the sky in that one?
I know, not
Oh,
that
good.
one.
All right,
No,
that's good.
I don't do that, Cameron.
Well, the last lighthouse shot with the sunset that you put up, you had dropped the sky.
It was an excellent photo. That
It was. It made all the better by the sky. That was.
it was.
Fake.
So we know what you've been doing this week. You've been building a fence.
Yep.
And keep doing. Is that it? Just the fence building.
I built a fence, building a bit of a.
Yeah, I know what else you've been doing. You've been using that ridiculously awesome lens.
Well, I have a little bit. I have used it. I went out and used that earlier in the week, actually on Sunday, and went out with a friend of mine, Jamie, out to the southwest, and we got some beautiful light. But sadly, that lens is in the mail going back to OM Digital tomorrow. So
tomorrow,
yeah, but there is a full moon tonight, so I might grab it out before I go to bed and
unbox
it and get it going. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun using that lens.
Just for people who didn't catch the episode last week, what is the lens?
It's an Olympus or OM Digital 150 to 400 mil f4.5 pro lens. So it's the equivalent of a 300 to 800 mil. It has image stabilizer built in. It also has a 1.25 times teleconverter built in. Putting all that aside, I must admit I was a little bit not skeptical, but when you see a lens that's that big and that expensive, you sort of expect it to be the bee's knees of sharpness and clarity and practicability. It actually did everything it meant to do. It was super sharp, super clear, nice and fast with the autofocus. Everything on the lens works really easily when you're swapping over, between focal lengths and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, whether or not I drop $10,000 or $11,000 on buying one, I don't know yet. But if anyone is listening who uses the OM system, who is purely into wildlife and sports and action, things like that, this wouldn't be a stupid purchase because it is a cracker of a lens. So
yeah, it looks amazing. And I would have thought, I mean, obviously the photos I've seen that you've put up on the socials have been awesome. Very, very cool. But I would have thought you are not the target audience for this lens.
No, I'm not. And that was one of the funny things when I spoke to Aaron from OM Digital. I said, look, I'd love to give it a go and give it a whirl. And we both sort of said, well, that's, you don't really do that wildlife stuff. But we did give it a bit of a challenge to see if we could use it in landscape. So a lot of the shots I've been sharing from the lens have been just landscape photography shot at 800 mil. And it's quite interesting to see how far you can actually get into a scene and get that light that, you might see right in the very distance. You can actually fill the frame with that beautiful light. So
yeah,
it has a practical use, but yeah, it's not a lens you would be hiking with or carrying around too far from a car, I wouldn't think. Yeah,
and as we discussed as well a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about that lens, it's pretty lightweight comparing it to equivalent L series lens or Nikon lenses or Sony lenses even. It's fairly light.
Yeah, totally. It's a fraction of the weight. The weight wouldn't be an issue carrying. It's just the size. Like trying to put something like that in the backpack would be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, I had a bit of an experience over the weekend myself with a lot of people with gigantic lenses. I was lucky enough to get down to the Australian Open Golf. Yes. Because those avid listeners out there know that I'm, as much as a photographic tragic, I'm also a golf tragic. So far as the fact that I love going to golf tournaments, which I know bores a lot of people senseless, but I got to walk the hallowed fairways of the Victoria Golf Club, which is just a stunning piece of real estate for golf, and and of course, as I do, I get sort of attracted to what the pro photographers are shooting with and having a good look at the gear they're carrying around, and a lot of them were lugging some big gear, man, and they even a lot of golf photographers will wear knee pads as well, so they're forever running to get the next shot, and they're literally on their knees taking these photos, and big monopods and lenses over the shoulder and lugging them down the fairway, and it got me thinking about the Olympus gear and the OM system gear, and how it would stack up against,
Yeah.
because I started to see a lot of Sony gear
Yes.
in the pro ranks, which is a break away from Canon. I think has dominated sports photography for quite some time. Nikon a little bit, but definitely Canon.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Sony stuff out there. And I got talking to one guy who was shooting Sony, couldn't give you his name, but he said the one thing he loved about the Sony is stealth. It's silent, dead silent. He can do the electronic shutter on it is just incredible. And he said he can shoot 1 billion frames a second and not miss a thing and not make a sound, which is important when you're photographing golf.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's funny you say that. I was watching the news today, and there was a press conference going on somewhere over the world, around the world. It wasn't Australia, but there was like 2 press photographers down the front using the Olympus lens that I've got here. And I went, I'm like, that's weird, because I could see it was definitely that lens. I'm like, okay, that's interesting that they were using it there. But yeah, look, I think the files that I've seen out of it, I've done some wombats and animals and stuff around Cradle Mountain, and the sharpness and clarity is great. Like, you compare it next to a Sony or a Canon or a Nikon, again, it comes back to that chat we've had about, where do you stand, and perfect viewing distance, and if it's going online versus getting printed, then I don't think there's a big issue. And
well, I would argue now that even if it is getting printed, I mean, unless you know for sure that you're doing fine art, really large prints.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't see any reason why people wouldn't save a few bucks as well, but get the lighter gear, particularly for pro sport.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you're going to save a few $1,000s on a lens, and you're probably going to save 4 or 5 kilos in weight overall. So that's a big difference. But again, I guess if we go back to the sports side of things, a lot of those are just, publications buying gear, and there you go. There's a photographer go out with it. So they just buy a bunch of gear. But if you were, starting out or wanting to, work your way up the ranks of sports photography or wildlife photography, and you had a budget, then I don't think you can go, like, it's still a super expensive lens, but compared to the comparisons on other brands, that's well in front. So
yeah, for sure. Awesome. I wanted to, before we get into our main topic of conversation, I wanted to bring something up about photography workshops.
Yes.
I had quite the experience. Goodness me, was this only last night? It could have been 2. The days blur in December. It's all just a day. December is one long day. But I decided to give this gentleman a one-on-one workshop. I want to say he's around 70 years of age. Had a Canon 700D that he bought 6 or 7 years ago. Classic story where he wanted to get into photography, bought the gear, and just couldn't relate to it. It just wasn't getting the results he wanted.
Yeah.
And then finally bit the bullet, said, I need someone to show me how to do this. And within, I reckon, 10 minutes, I had this guy completely and utterly hooked on photography.
Yeah.
And it was the smallest things, just showing him that you can adjust the diopter through the eyepiece, and adjust. He was like, oh, this doesn't appear sharp. It's like, hang on, let me show you something. He went, oh my God, right. Okay. Now, I was blind. Now I can see quite literally.
I've had a couple of those moments as well with the diopter. The diopter's a big one.
Well, that's a pro tip, isn't it? Because I don't know that the majority of people know what it is or what it does, and it's just a little adjustment that's on the back of your eyepiece. I don't know if you've got a camera handy, Cam, but we're only photographers while we have a camera handy. No. But on the back of the eyepiece is a little dial where you can actually adjust the viewfinder to suit your vision. So if you wear glasses, for example, you can shoot without your glasses.
Yeah.
Or if you
wear glasses, you can match it to your glasses.
Correct. Exactly. And you can basically customize that diopter like you can with a pair of binoculars. So as the workshop progressed, showing him simple things like ISO, and all I had to do was relate it back to film, because this guy's 70 and he gets 400 speed film. I remember that. It's like, well, you realize you can now change your film speed shot to shot. And he's like, oh my God, right. And it got me thinking, it's like, who's selling this gear? Like, why are people being told this? When they're making to me, that's an absolute selling point.
Yeah. And that's something I'm sure we spoke about at one stage. And I've spoken to a lot of people about when we were working at Camera House is
Hmm.
that was the big gap, really. Like people would buy a camera and then they'd pay for the camera and they'd walk out and have no idea how to use the camera or understand really what they had in their hand. And I'm sure I've floated it with the guys at Camera House many times. Like, we should be doing education, or we should be doing some mini courses to show people how to use their cameras and charge them for whatever. But you're right. Like, people buy cameras and the people selling them are just like, well, that's $2,000. Thanks. How many megapixels is it? Yep, that's all you need. There you go.
Yeah.
So
I think it came down a lot to people would do a bit of basic research, or the classic, I've got a friend who's a photographer and he recommended this, I did a Google search and see what was best, and I came up with a Canon 700D. Okay, great. But Ted's are selling it for this much, and JB Hi-Fi got it for that much, but they're throwing in this, they're throwing in that, and it's just like, okay, are they going to show you how to do a custom white balance? What now?
Why would I need that?
That's the thing. And no one, like, in my workshop, I actually talk a lot about white balance, and I explain to people what it is. And people, quite often the reaction is, oh, wow, like, that's so cool that you can do that. And second of all, how come I've never heard of this before?
I've had this camera for 10 years and no one told me I could change that.
Well, this guy the other night, like, as I say, he reckoned he'd had his camera for at least 7 years. And he said, I guarantee you that ISO button has never been pressed.
But then again, does that also come back to, just being the devil's advocate here, but does that come back to the people that are buying the cameras not actually reading manuals, or actually, because a lot of the manuals are quite complex. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that explains, which explains a lot of what everything does. So is it also a bit of the case that customers are like, well, this is a top range camera, I shouldn't have to press any buttons, it should just look good?
You know what? I think there is a bit of that. I think there is a bit of, I've spent all this money, then it should just deliver great photos. And in auto mode, to a certain degree, it does. It does, provided you don't do anything, push it beyond its capabilities. But it's the classic analogy I use every time. If you leave it on auto, it's like buying a Range Rover and never taking it off road. It's and also I use the analogy, like, I can go and buy Tiger Woods' golf clubs. And I ain't winning a major anytime soon. So, it's
I came up with a really good analogy the other day. I don't know where I put it. I said it somewhere. Oh no, there's someone on Facebook. There's a group it's like a Tassie, when people come holiday in Tassie, it's a Facebook group that people ask questions and gets lots of stuff in there. And this lady had put up there that she'd been to Tasmania, but was so disappointed. Everywhere she went just never looked like any of the photos that she'd seen of Tasmania. And she was she was disgusted and really disappointed. And it sort of ruined her holiday and stuff like that. And
really? Wow.
And said, people, it's really misleading. And a few people put up there saying, well, a lot of these are photoshopped, and, maybe you're thinking of like more postcard shots versus happy snaps. And I put up there something along the lines like, it's like, if someone, if I give you the notes for one of the best Beatles songs and you try and play it, it's still going to sound like shit. But if the Beatles play it, it's going to sound incredible. So pretty much what I was meaning is that if you take the photo of Cradle Mountain with no experience and no skill as a happy snap, then it's probably not going to look as good as a professional photographer who edits it and plays around with light and all that kind of stuff. So, but I used the Beatles analogy, and I thought it was a pretty good one. And
it is good.
I got absolute donuts back from that lady. She didn't answer. She didn't like. She didn't even get upset about it.
Well, I'll give you heaps of kudos for that one. But it's you're exactly right, and it's a case of someone like yourself who's now lived in Tasmania for quite a few years, gone back to these locations time and time again, and got better and better and better at your skills. Whereas, like, what, you've been there for 2 weeks, a week, whatever. Got in the car, drove there, looked at Cradle Mountain and went, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Why doesn't it look like?
I was just about to say, one of the comments I think she made was that she got to Cradle Mountain at lunchtime and it looked nothing like the photo she'd seen. And I'm like, that's probably because that was sunrise or sunset. But these are the same people that go out there and they go back to Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane, wherever they're from, and go, well, I better buy, an A7R4 from a Sony, because that'll make me the better photos, and go back to Cradle Mountain and take a photo on auto and still get it looking crap. You've got to actually practice, and you got to understand and research and do stuff. So
and instead of spending money on that lens, you spend money on a photography workshop or
that's it,
on travel to get to these awesome places.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
no, that's right. I think it's probably pretty cliched, but I think doing it, and a lot of our listeners, we're sort of preaching to the choir here because they're probably already on the same pages. But if you've got a friend, people who is keen on photography, but they're a little bit frustrated with it, tell them to do a one-on-one workshop or they don't have to go on a full-blown tour or anything like that. I mean, a lot of wherever you're located, well, you have to go on one of CAMs, but wherever you're located around the country, there's going to be maybe a photography group. There's going to be like-minded individuals. There's probably even someone running entry-level photography stuff. Here in Ocean Grove, we have a called like a community house or where they run cool little courses for like people who might be semi-retired and looking to get into something. They run a photography one there. I think it goes for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
For like $100.
And it's exactly the same as, like a lot of people, I think, getting into photography these days, from my experience, tend to be sort of more towards the retiree age.
I'm going to disappear off the screen, but keep talking.
They're going to be more about sort of the retiree age, maybe. But it's the same as if you, like, when you go play golf or anything else that you enjoy as a hobby for, for your time, in your spare time. If you're playing golf, you'll go to the driving range. If you play bowls, you'll go practice during the week. If you run marathons, you'll go train beforehand. So there's this training and practicing all about, photography, that you still need to get out there and practice your craft and get better at it, not just pick up a camera and think you can be an expert straight away. So yeah, it's a bit interesting how that works, but it's good that the old guy that you came with picked up a few things. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he was.
You're getting another beer, aren't you?
So you didn't have to give that away, Cam.
You're getting another beer.
I forgot to preload myself, but
that's right.
there's definitely a 2 beer episode, so that's fine.
Yeah, good. But yeah, it's you got to practice, and if you're not practicing, then you can't expect to get better, really.
No, that's exactly right. Anyway, we will. Our main topic for discussion this week, we wanted to talk about printing and selling of photography. We've touched on it. I mean, we're 63 episodes old, so some of our subjects and topics do overlap as we go through. But I remember at some point we have spoken about this before, and it brought up a lot of chat in the comments and things like that. Is printing and selling photography dead?
Well, this topic actually came up. I'll give another shout out to Chelsea. She's going to be glowing by the end of this episode.
She's gone from chocolates to boiled ollies to
chocolates. Yeah. I was talking to her last night, and Chelsea helps me a bit with my business, and we're talking about what next year would look like. And I really, along with a lot of other, for example, Tom last week and other photographers that we talked to, yourself included, is, to me, the ultimate is selling prints. Like you said last week, there's nothing better than someone laying down their hard-earned to buy a picture of yours framed up, and it's a lovely feeling. It's like a feeling of completeness when you've done the whole shot and the editing, the effort to get it, and all that kind of stuff. And we're talking about it last night about what I want to try and do, and I've got a few ideas in regards to selling prints next year. But we were trying to really sit there and say, okay, who is actually buying photographic prints these days? Like, who is the market for photographic prints? So, and to be honest, I can't put my finger on it. Like you could say, okay, it's collectors, or you could say it's lovers of art, or it might be businesses who want to, like you did the doctors, I think it was around the corner the other day, putting stuff in theirs. But it's a really, really hard one to figure out who
it's actually becoming a bit of a running gag around Ocean Grove now. It's like, if your waiting room hasn't got a Brendan Waite's photography photo, and I mean, are you even a business? I mean,
really? That's awesome.
People get I was in the dentist, and guess what I saw? And I was over getting an X-ray, and guess what I saw? And I was at my accountant's, and guess what I saw? Actually, my accountant has got one of your pictures hanging in his waiting room. So
does he really?
Right. He might have won it at my golf day one year.
Oh, very good. Yes. So it got me thinking that, like, is selling prints dead? Like, are we just beating, like, it's got to be a minority of a customer that wants to buy prints, as opposed to the majority of people who just like looking at a print and go, oh, that's nice on the screen, move on. So it was an interesting conversation that Chelsea and I had, and really we didn't get a solution to it as to, is it dead? Is it worth trying to still sell nice framed fine art prints, or is it just a waste of time?
Okay, well,
tell me the answer, Brent.
Clearly, I'm going to come from my experience and So when I first started selling prints or any photographs of any note was actually my old stomping ground of Swan Hill. I still remember the very first time I sold one of my photos, and it was a sunrise photo I'd taken in Warrnambool, of all places.
Yeah.
And it might have even been shot on a K1000, but at least an MZ50 film. And I remember the sunrise very well. It was freezing cold because it's Warrnambool, and there was just a beautiful golden light on the water, and it was the ocean was a mirror. Like, it was flat. Okay. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I just waded out there up to my waist and took these photos. And anyway, I put one in a frame for a friend of mine's, must have been his 18th birthday. I gave him to him for that's how long ago this is. This is 32 years ago. And of course, I gave him the print as a gift, and his parents actually said, "Oh, that's amazing! Like, that's a beautiful photo. Did you take that? That's incredible! Blah, blah, blah. Can we get a copy?" Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah. Like, I don't know. Do you want to just cover the cost of the frame? And that's all that was.
Yeah.
But that was the genesis. That's where the bug started for me, because it was just like, and then we started. I was my partner at the time. We started just taking photos around our hometown of Swan Hill.
Yeah.
But we were targeting locals and we were targeting tourists to the area. And that has never changed for me.
Yeah.
I've always been lucky enough to be able to sell my photos in high tourist areas. So those of you who know some of my work know that I did the Yamundi markets up in Queensland for 9 years, but I lived in Noosa. So, I was able to go and shoot Noosa heads and up the Noosa River and the Sunshine Coast and surfers and all this, and then heading north to Fraser Island and those sort of places.
Yeah.
But the Yamundi markets is set right in the heart of that area.
Yeah.
So you'd have
it's a captive market, isn't it, really?
100%. And you'd have an instant emotional connection with the area. So, for example, I'd have a photo of, there's a bay at Noosa Heads National Park called Tea Tree Bay. It's quite well known. And a lot of people learn to surf there, or a lot of people do the walk around the national park, and they love it. I mean, there's been marriage proposals there and the whole bit. So when I would have those photos of Tea Tree Bay, like, oh, Tea Tree, oh, that's all. Yeah, we love, that's where you asked me to marry you, or that's where my dad's ashes are scattered. Like, it's even stuff like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not so fantastic that their dad died, but you know what I mean? It's sentimental is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
There's a sentimental connection there.
Yeah.
And even, as I transitioned back down to Victoria, I would do markets in Melbourne, but I would have Melbourne scenes, city scenes that I wasn't used to sort of doing, but I did it because I knew that they would, again, strike a chord with people.
Yeah.
And that's where it works for me. And it definitely works for me in Ocean Grove. Yes, the backbone of my business is printing other people's photos, but quite a substantial amount of my sales come directly from my photography of Main Beach at Ocean Grove, of that photo behind me, the lighthouse at Point Lonsdale, or Barwon Heads. And Barwon Heads is it's an iconic beach. Like, people come from Melbourne for day trips to go to Barwon Heads. So they see the bridges over the Barwon Heads River that everyone's seen 1,000 times, but they haven't seen it when it's got that awesome sunrise behind it, or those colors behind it.
Yeah.
So you've got the emotional connection already, or the emotional attraction already, coupled with the fact that it's a decent photo as well. And there's your trigger point. And it's like, actually that would, if I could go to IKEA and grab a shot of whoever and just, some pine trees and chuck it on the wall, not having a crack at your pine tree photo, by the way, that was just subliminal. And just chuck it on the wall, by some nobody and some company in Sweden pockets the profits. Yeah. Or I could get this guy's work that's actually quite unique. And it's not like I'm going to go to my neighbor's joint and they're going to have exactly the same photo on the wall.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, I think the emotional aspect, sentimental, emotional connections with the scene is what makes it. Now, I can guarantee you, Cam, when I do the overland track with you next year, I'm going to go back through your photos of the overland after I do that, and probably end up buying one off you.
Yeah. So you think that selling prints is still alive and well, but your secret to it, I guess, is that you're keeping it local. You're keeping it not emotionally charged, but sentimentally attached, because people come down to these certain places.
100%.
So this is where I sort of struggle because I have the little gallery out at Richmond, and that turns over a little bit of work, but it doesn't turn over truckloads of work. And they're all Tassie photos, and they're all Tassie shots of, what we would think would be emotionally driven locations to go to and things like that. So it's sort of, I'm still a bit lost in regards to what I'm going to do as to, do I keep doing Tassie shots, or do I start doing things a bit differently, or, limiting the amount that I'm selling, or all these different things. But
Yeah.
It's hard to put your finger on who is your audience. And especially if you're trying to run an online store as well, like online store versus physical store where you might be, you've got people physically in that location, like breathing in the air that they're looking at on the photos.
That's right.
Where an online store, they could be anywhere in the world looking at it, and maybe that connection's not there. So it's a tricky one. How to
from a purely salesmanship side of things. When I've got people who I know are interested in my photos and they're looking through the collection, like I have physical like stacks of prints that people can look through. Boxes with mounted photos that people can look through, way better than any website. And the reason for that is it's tangible. They get their hands on it, and people can see the photo, and then they see the photo, and then they look up at the wall and they can see it, huge on a big canvas print. And again, it's that emotional connection. When a customer turns to me and says, "Do you have a website?" I've lost the sale. I know I have. Yes, I do. And it's sort of like their way. Oh, I'll go and check them out online.
Yeah.
So what I then say to people is, well, you're at an advantage now because you've seen how they look printed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes that even gets them to buy it then and there. But most of the time they will come back. But, if it's just, have you got a business card? Sure. And when I used to do the markets, that was just, that was the death knell of the sale. Do you have a card? Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Yeah. So what you're saying is I probably need to go to the Salamanca market and have a stall down there.
Look, there's two schools of thought on markets. I loved doing the markets. I really did. And I did them for a long time. Yamundi, as I said, for pretty much 9 years, which would have to be one of Australia's best well-known markets, and certainly a fantastic market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to all my friends in Yamundi, who probably aren't listening. And and then I came down, as you remember, I was doing the Flemington markets at Flemington Racecourse.
Right.
Then I was doing Yarra Glen markets, Red Hill as well, all the big Melbourne markets.
Yeah.
And then I did Point Lonsdale market down here before I opened Camera and Photo. When I was working for Camera House, I did the Point Lonsdale markets. And how many of these sort of shots do you reckon I sold? Like they just flew, because I could literally, from my market stall, I could just about get on my tiptoes and see that lighthouse.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Literally under their noses right there. And I think if I was going to do Salamanca markets, I would have so many photos of the Salamanca Harbour. You wouldn't, it would just, that would dominate one whole side of my market stall. Yeah. Because that's exactly where they are. And that's the connection. And even a photo of the markets themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
A drone shot or something like that of the markets. It's that emotional connection that people have with their holiday more than anything.
So is online dead then? Is it really hard to still get sales online?
I can't remember the last time I sold a print online that I hadn't to a customer that I hadn't already liaised with in the store, or seen in the store.
And it's funny you say that as well. Just going back a bit, that the canvas that you've done this week for me of the canola fields and Ben Lomond Mountain. That's the person who bought that owns that property.
There you go.
So there's that emotional connection right there for it. So I think you've given me a pretty good hint as to where I need to go with things. So
live on air, folks, on the Down South Photo Show, I have taught Cameron something.
Yeah, well, you've been doing that side of things a lot longer than I have, and successfully doing it. Where I've been doing the workshops and probably done a few more bigger workshops now than you might have done over the years. But printing and workshops, like I love doing my workshops. I really do. And again, the markets that I've done, we did that one in Greensboro or whatever it was that time. It was terrible, but it worked. But I
sold kangaroos hopping over water.
We did, yes. And that wasn't.
There are exceptions to the rules.
There's kangaroos in Greensboro. But I actually do like that customer interaction and telling the story. And and talking to people. And I think a market stall would be a great thing for me, but it's more of a time constraint that sort of stops me from doing that.
Oh, look, I'll be the first to throw my hat in the ring and say that markets are hard work. They are hard work, and sometimes they can be downright depressing.
Yeah.
Some of the I've got so many stories, but things like the weather. For one, most markets are outdoors, and you've got to be weatherproof. And photography and like prints and weather do not mix. They never have.
Well. No.
Some days it's just blowing that windy down here. I remember nearly lost my entire stall, nearly blew over. Literally hanging on to my tarp, my tent, and all that sort of stuff. While pictures are falling off. That was horrible. Yeah. And then you'll get a 42-degree day, and everything just bakes. And they sweat behind the glass, and they look terrible.
Yeah.
But scattered in amongst that were the days where, and this is back when I wasn't relying on the markets, but I'd have days where you'd sell $3,000 or $4,000 worth of your photography on a Sunday morning. Which was pretty cool. It was a good shot in the arm, not just financially, but also emotionally. Like because it could be quite depressing. And I've got horror stories of the things that people would say to me. Literally tell me my photos were shit to my face. Which was just amazing to me. Like it was more, and obviously
I'd love that.
They were the ones with the problem. I wasn't the one with the problem.
I'd love to deal with those kind of people.
Yeah. Oh, look, and you'd have people, even people that were a bit snide, or I've got a photo better than of the 12 apostles, better than that. And of course, me being a smart ass, I'd just say, where can I see your work, mate? My hackles would get up straight away.
Straight into defense mode.
I had one in particular, very, very bad run-in with a customer, but I won't open that one up.
Name and shame them. Go on. They probably don't listen. So it's just a really interesting topic. And like I said, we spoke to Tom last week, and he was saying about how he does his exhibition. He sells work out of his gallery. I don't know how much he sells online. So I think there is a big gap to seeing something in person versus something online. And like I said, there's that emotional connection and stuff like that. So it's good food for thought.
Definitely. And I think when it comes to Tom, he crosses the threshold of art photography. Do you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of particularly his aerial stuff is borderline abstract. He uses color. He uses texture a lot. He also uses materials. So he'll print to metal. He'll print to acrylic. He'll canvas, obviously, like I do. And then he's fully framed pieces and stuff like that. Tom also, I'm sure he won't get upset with me saying this. Tom's work is expensive, which is a market of its own. He's targeting a particular demographic, which is interesting, and he also limited editions. I think he does quite a bit of limited edition work as well. Which I'm not a fan of at all. I've tried a couple of times to do limited edition stuff, and people are just whatever, mate.
Well, this is the conversation I was having last night along the lines of, do we do limited editions? And I went, no, I don't. The limited edition prints now have a bit of a bad rap.
I don't get it. I don't get it, Cam. I mean, a limited edition painting, sure.
Yeah.
There's one.
Yeah. See, if I was going to go down the avenue of doing limited edition things, they would be one-offs. Because to me, that's limited. Like limited to 100, that's not limited. That's 100 copies of the same thing. But
that's right.
If it's a limited print, like the one behind me, like you might say, right, I'm going to do one print of this only, and that's it.
Yep.
And once it's going to be on sale, and then if it doesn't sell, it goes away in the archives and never comes out again.
Yeah, it's funny because I've often thought, all right, how can I possibly prove that this is one of one in the digital era?
Yeah.
And the only way to do that now is with an NFT.
That's right. And we're not going anywhere near NFTs.
So here's your print. Here's your QR code that you'll scan, and it'll take you to your NFT. End of story. Done.
Yeah. Or you go back and shoot film and give them an egg.
Now, funny you should say that. I did my very first exhibition up in Queensland. So I was doing the markets. I'd done them for about 4 or 5 years, and
Yeah.
then a gallery approached me whether I wanted to do an exhibition, which was pretty exciting, like awesome stuff. Yeah, okay, I'll do an exhibition. So I went out and specifically shot 20 new images. So my target was to have 20 new photos that no one had seen. I did it up and down the Sunshine Coast. I even like hired a helicopter and went all in and did the whole bit. Got some really cool shots.
Yeah.
3 of which I decided to make limited editions, 1 of 1, and I got my framer to frame the negative in the thing.
Yep.
I ended up throwing all 3 of them away.
Right.
It made no difference. People didn't care. They thought the idea was cool. Like, oh wow, like this really is mine. But I just couldn't. It didn't. Like, people didn't jump. They didn't get in the exhibition, and they what sold first. I sold a bit at the exhibition. It was great, but I never sold them.
I think you've hit the nail on the head earlier, though. I think it's something that we forget quite a lot. And I don't know why I do, but I always relate back to music and photography. I think there's such a connection between the two that hasn't really been established properly. But it's emotion. It's an emotive response to something. It's something that puts you in that. Standing on that coastline, looking at you can feel the warm breeze in the lighthouse, or where I am, you can sort of understand how cold it is, and people have a physical, emotional reaction to it, like they do with music.
Yep.
And if it's online, it's really, really hard for people to get that. But if they're in the location or have visited that location, it's a memory. It's a flashback to, oh yeah, I've been there. That's great.
Yep.
I remember that place. I know what it's like. So
yeah, exactly.
I think you might have solved.
And it's also, like I mentioned before, so we get people that in Ocean Grove that have holidayed in Ocean Grove their whole life.
Yeah.
And so did their parents, and so did their parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came here literally as babies, and they grew up on that beach every summer, and through their formative years, and they might have met someone, they might have fallen in love, they might have got married, they might have started their own family, all off the back of this area, but they live in Melbourne.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously there's that emotional connection straight away, which just works. Again, Point Lonsdale, the amount of times people come in, oh yeah, that's where we got engaged. We'd love to get a great photo of the jetty at Point Lonsdale. What have you got? And you just show, and you've got photos of the jetty at Point Lonsdale. I know at least 3 other photographers that have taken better photos than I've got. But they're there and they're talking to the dude that took the photo. And that is yet another emotional connection.
Yeah, I think that is also another part of it. Yeah. Being able
no one can sell my photography like I can sell my photography. That's just how it is.
Yeah. And it's funny, we had that similar conversation with the Richmond Gallery out here, is based on just pure work constraints and time constraints. We weren't able to get out there all the time on the weekends. And Luke O'Brien, who I share the gallery with, he does the Salamanca market. So he's at the market on Saturdays. So we didn't neglect the gallery, but we just haven't put as much physical presence in the gallery as we would like to. But every time I've been in there and spoken to customers coming in, the not the salesperson, but it's just that personality kicks in, that people go, oh, you took these photos. Oh, cool. And then you can start telling stories about where they were. And I can guarantee I moved more work when I was there than when I haven't been there.
It's an absolute given. So when I finished up at Yamundi, my wife and I decided to travel for a year in Europe. And one of my mates offered to run my market stall at Yamundi for me. And I was like, yeah, no problem. That'll be great. After about 6 months, we had to pull the pin because he just wasn't making the sales that I could make. There was a couple of photos that I had that sold themselves, but a lot of them, people needed to know the story behind it. So
like the Jesus kangaroo.
The Jesus kangaroo. Ash Hughes comes to mind as well. So Ash sells a lot of photos around the Surf Coast. And I print for him, so I know a lot of the work that he's selling. And not more often than not, but I would say at least 50% of the time, in his surf photos, there are surfers in the photos. And I bet that he is selling that photo either to a surfer who knows Bell's Beach or knows Winky Pop or knows Jan Juk, knows those beaches, or he's selling it to a partner of a surfer. Who's buying it for a gift, right? Because they can see themselves there. They can see them. That's them standing on the beach holding their board or, carving that wave. So, again, that's that emotional connection. You've got to be good. You can't just go out and take whatever think you're going to have an emotional connection. You've still got to have the quality of photographs. And I think it's one of the big myths in photography, and that is that people think it's easy to make a living out of it.
Yeah.
It's just damn well not. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah,
hard graft.
it is. Yeah, it's not easy going. And look, if it wasn't for workshops and things like that, I'd be in a different boat altogether.
Yeah.
But I would love to be able to just move some. I'd love to be able to sell prints that I'm proud of,
Yeah.
and places I've been that I'm proud of, and sell them to people so they could have them on their wall. And like I think, like Tom said last week as well, like he put a photo up in some multi-million-dollar mansion where they had tens of thousands of dollars worth of art on the wall, and they chose his photo for one of the main spots. Like that's a feeling that money can't buy. Again, that's emotion for us.
I'd be curious to know whether the people that bought that photo had been to that location.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Again,
I'd be incredibly surprised if they haven't.
Yeah, that's right. It'd be rare if they just picked a bit of work for no reason, wouldn't it? Without so much attachment.
Yeah, that's right. It's either going to be a really spectacular, well-known place or a place they've been to.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
Right. Well, you've solved my problem. I'm going to sell millions next year.
Happy to help you, mate. That's fine. I'll print your canvases for you.
I need someone to print canvas because no one down here that I like does it.
Did ship one to you today?
Yes, he did. It hasn't arrived yet, but yeah.
If anyone would like to enter this discussion, it's a two-way street here on the Down South Photo Show.
Yeah, I'd love to hear people's ideas.
Speaking of, Cameron.
Well, before you go there, I would actually like to hear from listeners, because that's the other side of the fence, because a lot of our listeners are photographers or lovers of photography.
Yes.
What actually, not convinces them, but what actually moves them to buying a framed print off a photographer? Is it, is it the photo itself, or is it that, exactly what we've been talking about, saying, well, I love that photo because I've been there and I've felt that before. So I'd love to get an idea. We could do a bit of a poll, tell us if you think you buy more on emotion or whether or not you buy more on visual, strikes you as a nice photo or strikes you.
Well, have you ever bought a photo, Cam? That's not yours?
Yes. Yep. I've bought a few.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of times the photos I've bought have been because it's a place I've been. Yep. And a lot of other times it's because I actually like supporting other artists.
Yeah.
So if I see a nice photo, I'm like, that's a lovely photo. I've never been there, but I really like the photo and it looks lovely. I'm more than happy to part with my money to buy a nice photo of a nice place if it supports someone. So, but yeah, like it'd be an emotional attachment or a visual attachment to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've bought over the journey. What is the guy's name? Obviously a big fan. In Byron Bay, another big town. No, I can't remember his surname. That's terrible. Anyway, people who visit Byron will know this guy. Been up there since the 80s. I don't even know if he's still got a gallery there, but a lot of dolphin stuff.
Right.
Shots that are taken directly off. It's got a French sounding name. You're Googling it for me. Thank you. It's got a D apostrophe something, I reckon. But anyway. Okay. No, anyway.
Keep going.
But
I'll keep looking.
But I remember when I was there, and man, I had no money, but I was in this guy's gallery, and he just had this awesome photo of a dolphin bursting through a wave just off Byron Heads. Yes. My God, I've done it again. Byron Bay.
Two beer episode, or was it a couple before the episode?
Sorry about that. No, it's definitely two. So I bought his, and what other? I'm sure I bought someone else's photograph, but I can't remember. But anyway, I've definitely bought like limited edition paintings.
Yeah,
because I think a limited edition print of a painting has more edge to it than a limited edition photograph.
I do. Yeah, I'm the same. I feel like
it's got to be like 1 of 10. It can't be one. As you say, 1 of 100, 1 of 1,000, whatever.
Yeah. It's not much. I can't find who that is. He might not be in Byron Bay anymore, but
he may not be. It was a long time ago, back when Jesus played fullback for Jerusalem.
Yeah, he was a shit player too.
He was. No,
he always went missing. So
nice.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that painters are actually more skillful than photographers. I think someone to paint
that goes without saying.
Like someone to paint the scene behind us with brushes and mixing paint and stuff like that. That's incredible. Like I'm happy to part money with that.
Next time you're at my place, which will be next year, Cam. I don't know if you've seen it, but have you seen the painting I've got of the 3 galahs?
I think I have. Is that in the lounge room?
Yes. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And everyone asks me if it's one of my photos.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding? Have a look. I wish I could get a photo like that, but it's been painted,
Yeah. And the other thing that's really, really interesting, I love, is the fine pencil sketching.
Yes.
of animals and wombats and all that kind of stuff. They are incredible as well. So,
Yeah. I'm just looking up this guy that
yeah, right.
see, talk amongst yourselves for a second, but I've got to
Yeah,
drop this guy's name in here.
yeah.
Greg Possel. How could I forget?
Is that the guy from Byron Bay?
No, Greg Possel's the guy that
No.
painted my galah pit. And
Oh,
people,
right. Yeah.
he's incredible, the best bird artist out there. Anyway, we digress. What were we talking about? So
we're going to get. I think that's it. I think we've covered. I think you've given me some really good tips there.
Good.
And probably anyone listening was also probably impressed by just the intellect of that conversation, because
they so weren't.
so generally we don't go that deep and then that full on, but maybe that's Tom from last week rubbing off on us.
It could be.
Probably not.
We're going to talk. I think we're going to hold Deer Cam over to next week, because
Deer Cam is a big one.
We're getting deep into this episode. We're probably pushing out close to the hour as it is.
Yeah.
Tip of the week.
Tip of the week. Oh, we did stereo.
I like it.
How many people just vomited in their own mouths, you reckon?
All of them. This is your tip of the week, Cam. So take it.
Yes. Well, the tip of the week. We probably touched on it in a couple of conversations, but for the love of Christ, people, use your histogram on the back of your camera. Stop looking at the back of your screen as an exposure guide. So a lot of people take photos and go, "Oh, that's too dark. I better change it," or "That's too bright. I better change that." Your histogram is what will give you the most accurate output of what light you've captured in that shot. So I implore people over the Christmas break, when you get your new camera for Christmas or whatever, understand what histograms do. Find your histogram on your camera and how to display it. Some cameras have a live histogram, which I think is probably one of the best inclusions on a camera in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So it'll actually show you if you're clipping highlights or shadows and things like that. But so many people I teach and meet, the first thing they do is look at the back of the camera and just go, "Oh, it's too dark on that screen." That screen is more or less just a computational or a composition tool, really, just to make sure everything's okay. Use your histogram, find out what the histogram does, and learn how to use it, because it'll make your photos a lot better, quicker.
So if it's good enough for Thomas Heaton, it's good enough for you, because Thomas Heaton.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, look him up. Great. I was watching his YouTube channel 2 nights ago. I'm addicted to his videos. I noticed on his live, he had a live histogram.
Right. Speaking of YouTube, I actually had a message from a good friend of ours on the show, a really good YouTuber friend of our show, Mr. Ben Horn.
Hello, Ben.
Ben, whether or not he's listening or not, but
of course he is. It's been a while. He was our inaugural guest on the show, wasn't he?
After 10 beers, he was. But he finally received our Down South Photo Show shirt and book that I sent him. So it had been sitting in the post office for 3 months, and for some reason his post office hadn't notified him of something in his post box.
Right. Well, I expect a photo of him wearing said shirt. Did you say, or hat? Shirt.
Shirt.
So I expect a photo.
If he's listening, which I hope he is, or if people are going to go watch Ben Horn's YouTube channel, maybe we can all get on there and say, "Geez, we'd love to see your Downtown Photo Show T-shirt on the next video."
Right. Exactly.
That would be great. But yes, he reached out and mentioned that he finally got it, so that was good.
Now, as per usual, we sort of duck and dive on this show and we go all over the shop. What I was going to say earlier was, it is December the 7th as we're recording this. This will come out on December 9. It's getting towards the back end of the year. I think we might be well and truly overdue for a live show, Cameron.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah.
We haven't done one for some time, and I think wrapping up everything that's gone on in 22, we might talk about like our favorite episodes. We might, they'll be live, so there'll be full interaction and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
We just need to, of course, work out when that might be, and we like to do them on a Sunday. Christmas Day is a Sunday. New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve would be a Sunday as well, so that could be interesting.
We could start. Here's a thought, which I don't think will work, but we could start off New Year's Eve with a live episode.
That's right. Well, that's a thought.
Or do we do a countdown to New Year's Eve on the Down South Photo Show?
No.
Imagine how pissed we'd all be. It'd be hilarious.
That's true. It's got merit, but no.
Well, maybe we could do like, anyway, I don't know.
I think somewhere between Christmas and New Year we should do it.
Right. Well,
maybe the Friday night between Christmas and New Year.
I was going to say next Sunday's out for me. Christmas Day is out, but we could definitely do one maybe the 30th of.
I'm looking at the 30th.
Should we maybe put that in there?
Friday, the 30th of December. Pencil
Yeah.
that in, Cameron. We'll there you go. You heard it here first.
Or
as usual, we're organising things on the fly.
Yeah, or if the crowd wants to do a New Year's Eve special. I don't do anything New Year's Eve anymore. I'm as boring.
New Year's Eve is
shit.
so overrated. It's the most overrated night of the year.
But if people want to jump on, we don't have
particularly when you're 50.
Yeah. We don't have to jump on at
I'm not
midnight.
50 yet.
Not yet, you're getting there. We don't have to jump on at midnight, but we could jump on at 8 o'clock and do an hour and a bit show.
It's possible, but we're penciling in the 30th. But
yeah, but if there's overwhelming support for a New Year's Eve one,
if it's the Saturday night, then maybe we'll see.
Mate, that's a no from you. You just don't want to do it.
It's clearly a no. But Cameron, what have you got coming up this week aside from building a fence?
I'm planning for our New Year's Eve.
That's right. You've started. That's it, yeah. And you're going to go and muscle your mate out of Salamanca markets and get in on his territory.
That's it. Get out of there. What have I got coming up? We are expecting Tom and I.
Are you? Congratulations.
Yes. No more kids. No. We are. Tom and I are expecting. That's even weirder. Our Cradle Mountain book proof. So we're getting our first advanced copy. Hopefully, might have it by next week, early next week.
So who keeps the proof?
Because we've done 2 copies. That's 4. We've done one with my cover and one with his cover. So what we've done is a 2,000 print run, 1,000 with Tom's front cover and 1,000 with my front cover.
Fantastic.
So what we're going to do is we get one each. So it's in the mail as we speak. And then we'll be able to show it off. But I've got pre-sales going on my website. Tom's got pre-sales on his website. So that's arriving hopefully, if anything, early next week or very late this week. And as I said, there's another shout out for Chelsea. That's about 12 for the episode.
It is.
That should really keep her happy for the next month or two, I'd say.
Definitely.
Ultra demanding. Jeez.
If you would like to order a copy of Cam and Tom's book, by all means, hit them up in the link in the description and pre-order your coffee table book, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's a 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter book.
Ooh, it's a hoofer.
It's a hoofer. It's got a bit of weight to it. And it's going to be, I think it's just under 200 pages, I think, from memory. So they will be arriving probably about the first week of January. So when I'm up in Melbourne, I'll be picking up a lot of them and bringing them back to Tassie, and then we'll be selling them all around Tasmania, but you can get a copy online as well.
Can you? Okay, all right. And my copy's already been put aside?
I've got your birthday present also.
Perfect. Excellent.
And no doubt you're stretching canvas for the rest of the week.
So things are starting to heat up. It's funny, December. I get so, I don't want to say anxious.
Pissed off.
I've been doing this for a long time, but you get sort of, it all builds up, and then December actually hits, but it's a little bit of a calm before the storm the first week of December. It's good. It's busy. And then it goes to DEFCON 5. It's just like bang, off she goes. So, so I feel like I've sort of swum to the surface. I've just got my head above it, so I'm good.
And now the tide's coming in.
And then it'll be it's hilarious. It happens every year. Christmas Eve rolls around about 5 o'clock Christmas Eve, and I cross off
on the door.
The last canvas has been collected, the last frame print's been collected, the last camera's been picked up, and it's just such a good feeling.
Yeah,
and away we go. So looking forward to getting all of that done. Also, just as an aside, while we're plugging things, tonight I launched my one-on-one photography workshops, where you can actually buy a workshop for a friend for a gift for Christmas, or you can buy one for yourself. That is on the website. I'd like to thank John from the other night, who inspired me to go ahead and do that, because we were talking about running the classes, and he said, no, dude, you do this really well. You've got to do one-on-one stuff a lot more. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I'll be able to retire on that by this time next year.
Hey, what are you doing in January apart from turning 50? Maybe. You got much on January?
Yeah.
You going away?
No, this time, because so January last year went to Port Fairy, if you may remember. This year we have a wedding in Noosa in early February, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to take both bits of time away from the shop, but we shall see. It sounded like a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, because I'm up in Melbourne. I'm doing those Olympus days.
You're in Melbourne, Australia.
The 12th, the 13th, and the 18th, and the 19th. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, like, I'm up there. maybe we should do a little mini workshop somewhere, you and I, just around Ocean Grove, and see if we can get a few people going to it.
The idea definitely has merit. I like it.
Let's talk off here.
We can talk on air, but no, that'd be weird. No. Thanks to everyone for listening into Check's Notes, episode 63 of the Down South Photo Show. Cameron, anything else to add?
No, I'm done, I think.
We almost need like that Cam's last word segment.
Cam's last word. No, I actually feel a bit of pressure when I get to the end, because you always want me to say something quirky like goodbye and to cowabunga and all that kind of stuff. And I just get to the point where I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah, bye.
I'm shit.
Don't be surprised, folks, if there is no episode next week. I didn't think there'd be one this week, but as it turned out, I've made time, so that's fine. As I say, as things get a bit closer to Christmas, this guy has a fair bit going on, but we shall see. Please don't think I don't want to do one. It's just we might not be able to. So,
and if you would like to see a New Year's Eve Down South Photo show,
if you would like to see
that, I got nothing, mate. It's lovely. Thank you again for that canvas you've done, and thank you for the insight tonight. You've actually helped me probably more than you've helped the listeners.
No worries.
And I'll make sure I write you a check when I make my first million.
I live to give. We will see you for episode 64 of the Down South Photo Show very soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.
See you later.